Have you ever stopped to wonder how the world actually stays connected? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible logic that makes it all work. We're going to tackle a paradox that sits right at the very heart of modern communication.
All right, let's just jump right in with the question that, on the surface, seems kind of impossible. You got a cell tower, right? It has maybe 100 channels, but it's got to serve, say, 10,000 users in its area. How does that even work? I mean, shouldn't the lines be jammed, like, all the time? But they're not, are they?
So, no, this isn't a trick question. This is a very real, fundamental challenge that engineers call the capacity paradox. It's this core problem of how you serve a massive population with what seems like a ridiculously small amount of resources.
And you know what? The solution is surprisingly simple, almost elegant. It all hinges on one single powerful insight. Not everybody is trying to make a call or use data at the exact same instant. The demand, it's spread out over time.
Okay, so if usage is staggered, how do we take advantage of that? Well, that brings us to the core concept that makes this whole thing possible. It's a clever technique that basically games the statistical behavior of all of us users. And that technique is called trunking. You see, instead of giving every single person their own dedicated, permanent line, which would be crazy expensive, we create a shared pool of channels. When you need one, you grab one. When you hang up, it goes right back into the pool for the next person.
It's all about efficiency.
Of course, there's always a trade-off. What happens if you try to make a call, but every single channel in that shared pool is already being used? Well, that's what we call a blocked call. The entire goal of the system design is to make sure this almost never happens.
So how do engineers make sure it's a rare event? They don't just guess. Nope. They use this incredibly powerful mathematical tool that was designed over 100 years ago for this exact problem.
First things first, you got to measure the demand. This is called traffic intensity, and it's measured in a special unit called, you guessed it, Erlangs. Just think of it like this. 1 Erlang is the amount of traffic needed to keep one channel totally busy for 1 full hour. It's just a neat way to capture the total load on the system in a single number.
Okay, next, you have to decide what your acceptable failure rate is. This is known as the grade of service, or GOS. So for your network, are you okay if maybe 2 out of every 100 calls get blocked during the absolute busiest hour of the day? Well, that would be a 2% grade of service, which is actually a pretty common standard.
And this is where it all comes together. The Erlang B formula is basically the secret sauce. It's the engine that takes your traffic load, your Erlangs, and your desired grade of service, and it spits out the exact number of channels you're going to need to make it all work. It's the recipe for building a reliable network.
Now, actually, solving that formula by hand can get a little hairy. But brilliantly, engineers came up with a graphical tool that makes it super easy. Let's walk through how to use it.
Okay, here it is. This is an Erlang B chart. I know, it might look a little intimidating at first with all those lines, but it is an incredibly powerful tool. It's basically a visual map of the relationship between our 3 key ingredients: the traffic, the number of channels, and the odds of getting a busy signal.
Let's break it down. Look at the vertical axis on the left side. See where it says probability of blocking? That's our grade of service. So if we were aiming for that 2% blocking rate we talked about, we'd find the little 0.02 mark right here.
Now look up at the curved line swooping across the chart. Each one of those lines represents a system with a different number of channels. You can see the labels for them up at the top. So each line tells the story of how a system with, say, 10 channels or 50 channels is going to behave under pressure.
Let's run through a quick example. Let's say we want a really good system, only a 1% chance of a call getting blocked. So we find 0.01 on that vertical axis. Then we just trace our finger across that horizontal line until we hit the curved line that represents a system with 57 channels.
And this is the magic part. Right from that point where the 2 lines cross, we just drop straight down to the bottom axis. And boom, it lands right around 44. What that tells us is that a system with 57 channels can handle a traffic load of 44 Erlangs and still meet our goal of blocking only 1% of calls. See? No complicated math needed.
But, the real world isn't always as simple as just getting a busy signal and being done with it. Sometimes the system doesn't turn you away. Instead, it asks you to wait. And this is where things get even more interesting.
Just think about it for a second. When you call your bank or an airline and all the agents are busy, you don't get a call cannot be completed message, right? No, you hear that familiar music and a voice saying, please hold for the next available agent. That's a totally different kind of system, and it needs a different kind of model.
And that brings us to the difference between Erlang B and Erlang C. Erlang B, the one we've been looking at, is a blocking model. If there's no room, you're out. Simple. But Erlang C is a delay model. If there's no room, you just get in line and you wait. It's designed specifically for scenarios like call centers, where people are actually willing to queue up.
But wait, there's another layer to this, and it has to do with human nature. Because, let's be honest, people don't wait in a queue forever. At some point, we get frustrated and we hang up. To account for this, there's an even more sophisticated model, Erlang A, and it adds the concept of abandonment.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Erlang A becomes absolutely critical when you're dealing with a situation where customer patience is a real factor. It doesn't just calculate how long someone might wait, it helps you figure out the delicate trade-offs between your staffing levels, those wait times, and, crucially, how many customers you might actually lose because they just give up.
So, whether it's a simple phone call getting connected or a massive, complex call center trying to manage thousands of inquiries, these Erlang formulas are pretty much the invisible operating system running in the background, constantly managing traffic and resources for us.
And look, this stuff isn't just academic theory. This logic is at work all around you, every single day. It's what determines if you get a dial tone. It's what calculates your estimated wait time. And at a bigger level, it's what balances the enormous cost of building all this digital infrastructure against our collective demand for instant, perfect service.
Which really leaves us with one final thought. In today's world, we're not just dealing with phone calls. We're juggling chats, emails, video calls, you name it. The core challenge is still the same, but now, maybe the most precious and most unpredictable resource we have to manage isn't channels or servers. It's human patience itself.